Right now, our local historian, Hank Huffnagel, is going to tell you a little bit of unknown history, aviation history.
That's right.
Clarion County. So, I give you Hank Huffnagel.
So, my name's Hank Huffnagel. I'm from Clarion. I wonder how many of you are from Clarion. Okay, about half. Some of the names that I say in this wild tale I'm going to tell you may not be familiar to you if you're from Tulsa, Oklahoma, but they should be, and by the end of my talk they will be. My father grew up in Clarion as well. If you know where the Methodist Church is, there's a parking lot right next to it, and that's where his little house was. He was born in 1914, and he was just 9 years old in 1923 when the excitement started. In 1919, the first airmail route between New York City and Chicago flew right over Clarion every day, back and forth. Clarion was a backup station if they ran into trouble where they'd stop to get their planes fixed. Bellefonte was another. Because there was a hangar in Clarion, they'd also get the odd pilot that would fly in. Have you ever met an odd pilot in your life? Yeah, they all are, aren't they? November 3rd, 1923, the sky crash lands down by Reedsburg, and my father and his brother Paul were taken down there to view the wreckage. It was Parker Kramer, and he'd managed to take the wings off of his plane. Parker Kramer decided to stay in Clarion. He viewed it as being the crossroads of the air. This was going to be the big place in aviation, according to him. The reason being that it was on a direct route between New York and Chicago, and also coming from Pittsburgh, the flight from Pittsburgh to Buffalo, New York, they crossed right in Clarion. So that meant this is going to be a hub. This is big time, and he was going to be here to take advantage of it. So in no time at all, he was camped out in Clarion. His plane was out at the old airfield, which is behind what used to be Riverside Market, Bilo, we can call it whatever we want. You know where that is. His friend Red Bartow came. Red was a mechanical genius with airplanes. He supposedly invented the revolving airport beacon. Once he landed and a wheel was knocked off his airplane, and he managed to fit a Model T Ford wheel to his airplane and take off and make it to his destination. So these two were there, plus Kramer's brother David. And they were scratching around trying to make a living in Clarion in the aviation game. Everybody knew about them, and when they first arrived, they could get $25 a ride, I'm told. So that's pretty good money, but it didn't last. Once everybody had been satiated, they were taking people for a ride for a penny a pound. They had a scale, whatever you weighed in, that's what it would cost you. Well, all right, nobody knew what was going to happen with these guys, and then in the paper, all of a sudden, out of the blue, was this announcement, which I'm going to read to you now. February 21st, 1924, Clarion Republican. Trade Expansion Week, March 1st to March 8th. Clarion businessmen have arranged for one of the biggest weeks in the town's history. They will furnish to visitors one of the greatest aviation programs ever attempted. The merchants have also arranged the biggest offering of bargains that ever tempted buyers. Make up your mind now that you will be in Clarion every day from March 1st to March 8th. It will pay you. The aviation program will be carried out by two of the best airmen in the United States, Parker Kramer and Red Bartow. Both these aviators are prepared to give the people the thrilliest stunts they ever witnessed. Here's the program. Saturday, March 1, the two aviators will give mid-air acts that will make you gasp your breath, wing walking and daring feats that will raise your hair. To complete the day, one of them will make a parachute jump from a mile high. On Wednesday, March 5th, aviator Kramer will fly under the Lakes to Sea Highway Bridge. If you want excitement, witness this. It will be a Hummer. Saturday, March 8th. Here's something never accomplished before. Red Bartow will fly from Main Street. If you never had a real thrill, you will get it by witnessing this act. Bartow is one of the best stunt flyers in the country. He won second prize at the big aviation meet against flyers from all over the world. If you wish to be entertained, come to Clarion anytime, any day, from March 1st to March 8th. It will pay you. So do you want to go? Everybody wants to go, right? So what could go wrong? Oh, nothing at all. So day one, Saturday the 1st. This was the day of the air show. Lots of barrel rolls and things, dive bombs onto Main Street, scaring people, flying high, flip-flopping. And then it came time for the parachute jump. However, behind the scenes there were some problems. Dave Kramer had been sent to Pittsburgh to borrow a parachute, and he didn't get back in time. And it came time for the parachute jump, and they didn't quite know what to do. Suddenly, Parker Kramer had an idea. He grabbed a pair of overalls, went to a nearby field, stuffed it full of corn stalks, threw it in the back of the plane, and Red fired it up, and away they went, way up in the sky, 2,000 feet up above Clarion. Parker pitched the dummy out of the plane, and it starts floating towards Earth. The crowd was amazed at first, and then aghast when the parachute failed to open. Meanwhile, the jumper was drifting off to the east, down towards the river, and everybody became excessively concerned, and the little boys wanted to see the carnage at the end of it, so everybody started racing down the hill towards the impact zone. Well, they got there soon enough, and they found coveralls filled with corn stalks. They were outraged, such outrage. A committee immediately set off for the airport to complain that the jump had been a fake and a fraud, but Bartow and Kramer were gone. But they came back by Wednesday. Wednesday was the day of the bridge flight. Before the bridge flight, they went up 2,000 feet, and Parker Kramer jumped with a parachute that had arrived from Pittsburgh, and it fell down and down, and everybody was happy. And then it only partially opened. But somehow he managed to get it to the ground. He was a little shaken up, but they got their parachute jump, so he was in everybody's good books again. And meantime, the fake that they had done on Saturday had been advertised on all the regional newspapers, so everybody was there to see this next stunt, this flying under the bridge thing. How many of you remember the old steel bridge on 322? Boy, I have asked that question many times, and each time fewer people stick up their hands. There was a steel structure bridge that was built over the Clarion River in 1902. They decided to dam the Clarion River about 1922, and that old bridge would have been put underwater, so they raised it up about 30 feet. In 1924, the bridge had been raised, but the dam hadn't been completed yet, so there was a big gap underneath the bridge. You could get an airplane under there. Nobody had done it, but Red Bartow thought he could do it. So that Wednesday, he comes up in the sky and does the barrel rolls, and they did the parachute jump, and then he dips down into the valley of the Clarion River and comes motoring straight towards that bridge, and the air currents are bouncing him all over the place. His wheels touch the water, which killed his ground speed, but he kept coming, and whoosh, he was through the bridge, and everything was okay, except he couldn't get up in the sky again. The downdrafts from the hills were keeping him down. He had to follow the course of the river clear to the new dam before he could get enough airspeed to regain the altitude that he needed. Everybody thought it was a grand success. That left the next Saturday, March 8th, the biggest deal of all. Taking off from Main Street in Clarion. Now there's the trick. How many of you ever been to Clarion? Well, if you know where the Methodist Church is, that's where the plane was parked, at the corner of 6th and Wood. It was pointed up past the Loomis, across Main Street, and then how the road slopes away, and then you're at the VFW, right? Anybody with me? If you're not with me, it's not too important. You would think could be done, except for the wires running across the top of the street and the fact that the crowds were so enthusiastic that they were just like 6 inches from the wingtips as he started his run. He revved the engine. Everybody was there. Things were a little bit different. The Loomis didn't have the back section in those days. It had a fenced-in backyard, and in the backyard there were clotheslines where customers laundry was hung, and there was an apple tree, a big old apple tree, and my father and all the boys of the town climbed up in that apple tree so that they could see the whole scene of Red taking off. So he revs up the engine, and they pulled out the chocks, and they gave it a shove, and he starts moving. And for a minute he thought he was going to make it, but then he got to the alley by the Loomis there, and a crosswind hit him. He did a ground loop and crashed through the fence into the laundry and smacked the apple tree a hell of a whack, and all the boys fell down in slow motion onto the plane. The plane was totaled. He swore he was going to try it again, but it never happened. It never happened. Eventually, the airmail service got better planes that had much longer range, and the dream of Clarion being the crossroads of the air just vanished, as these things do. Parker Kramer went on to be a world explorer. He was trying to follow the Great Circle route to Norway in 1931 when his plane was lost and not heard from again. And so in 1933 there was a tremendous air show in Clarion where his mother came, and great celebrations and dropping of bombs from the air. The bombs were full of paper bags full of flour, and the pilots were to see whether they could hit the bullseye. I'd like to see them do that now. Probably could. Red Bartow survived. He was still alive in 1960 when this boy who had worked for flight lessons decided he'd write his memoirs of this famous week in Clarion's history, and that's where I got the facts that I've been feeding to you. I also have the newspaper articles of the time, and if you put them side by side, there's certain discrepancies. So I've told the better of the two stories. And that's what I had for you this evening.